Our thinking was we need to solve our own problems. Before expressPay, you couldn't pay for your internet on the internet. What was the worst that can happen? We wanted to take on segments that consumers interacted with often. Keep thinking of what do our people really need. We thought if we offer this solution to the market, it would be a no-brainer for people. We said, hey, let's get together and try and digitize and get our country in line with what we are seeing in other markets also. And we're literally going out and buying the credits in little bits at a time. The stubbornness was in us in terms of the drive to succeed was so high. Today, I would say we have the best customer service team in the country. The first amount we paid ourselves was either 300 or 400 cedis a month, which in today's dollars is about $20 a month. We had options to potentially exit. The kind of timelines you see in the West, what we find is it doesn't work in Africa. We figured we could apply our minds to it.
Akwaaba, and I'm saying Akwaaba because we're taking this live from the beautiful city of Accra, one of my favorite cities in Africa. And we're doing this because today we're going to speak with an amazing gentleman. In fact, we're meant to speak with the entire team, but we're speaking with Curtis. Curtis is one of the co-founders and the CEO of expressPay Ghana. I'm going to let him tell you the story of expressPay, which is just an amazing story. And the title of this podcast is going to be The Audacity to Dream. This is because if you know Ghana, you know Ghana is plagued by mobile money. Mobile money is in everything that everybody does, in how you pay, in even paying your rents, in government, everything. But expressPay has been able to build something amazing. And so today we're going to hear straight from Curtis the journey. How did they start? Curtis and his team have built such a beautiful brand called expressPay, and today we're going to hear all about it. And I'm hoping that you young entrepreneurs, fintechs, if you're thinking of moving into payments and you're watching this, you're going to be inspired after this. So, Curtis, lovely to speak with you.
Always a pleasure, Nkebet.
I had coconut water today. I'm loving it. I always love coming to Ghana. It's always such a beautiful experience. So how are you?
Doing great. Fantastic. Welcome back to Ghana.
Akwaaba
to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
expressPay is practically a teenager now. You're 13 years. 13 years. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. And so there are three more co-founders in expressPay. So there's Kojo, there's Kwe, and there's Ni.
Yes.
Right? Also known as Will.
Correct.
Fantastic. So tell us, you were working in corporate. You were working in a global corporate. We won't mention the name. Yeah. You stepped away from that comfortable life, moved to Ghana, and decided to start a fintech.
Yeah.
Why?
That's a good question. Why? Well, first of all, Ghana is home, right? And at heart, myself and my co-founders, we're really problem solvers. And our thinking was we need to solve our own problems. And so coming home, I'll come home, and it was a challenge paying for basic stuff. And we didn't understand why no one was really taking a stab at it. And we thought we could do it. And so we said, hey, let's get together and try and digitize and get our country in line with what we are seeing in other markets also, because we knew we could do it. In fact, all the tools were there. The banks had issued cards. People had cards in their pockets, but no one was using to transact.
True.
Everyone was treating their cards as an ATM card. They would literally, one of the stories I like to tell is, back then you'd go to a bank, so you could pay for some bills at a bank. So you could pay a water bill at a bank, for instance. So you go to the bank with your ATM card. You go to the ATM, take out cash, walk into the banking hall, queue to pay your bill, which we thought was outrageous. And then one of the other things I like to say is that before expressPay, you couldn't pay for your internet on the internet, because you literally had to step out, go buy a voucher. So go find a vendor, buy a voucher. So your internet's out. The internet's out. You have to step away from the computer, go find a vendor somewhere, buy a voucher, come back to your computer,
And
enter the voucher number before your internet is back on. And we thought it was ridiculous. And so we had these various challenges and said, hey, we can take a stab at it. The banks have the cards, people have the cards, but they're not using it to purchase. They're just using it for cash. And clearly, there are some solutions that exist for some of these bill payments. So, because if the bank can take money and record a water bill payment, for instance, they clearly have the infrastructure for you to be able to actually pay digitally. So we set out thinking, let's tackle everyday spend categories or frequent spend categories because it was going to require behavior change. And so we wanted to take on segments that consumers interacted with often. So one of the big ones we actually highlighted was airtime, because everyone was buying scratch cards, buying scratch cards everywhere. And we said, hey, because people are buying scratch cards frequently, can we put this online or on an app so people can pay for it and repeatedly pay for it so they get used to paying for stuff online? That's how we started, because we thought if we could connect the dots, people would love it. There'd be no need to leave your home or your office to pay for these basic services. And that's how we set off, thinking of a few categories. We looked at frequent bills people will pay for. We looked at airtime and started with that. That was the start of the journey.
Wow. So you started with airtime, and now we'll talk about everything you're doing now. So it was basically airtime, just to ensure that people were getting used to it, because people buy airtime frequently. Amazing. And all of you were abroad.
Indeed.
And all of you moved back to Ghana.
Yes. At different times, but essentially I think we all had this urge to come back and solve a problem. And at the crux of it, we kind of had been tuned to take on a problem and try and resolve it. And we figured we could apply our minds to it. So interestingly, Kojo and Will had tried something similar a few years back. They had come to Ghana, they're doubling in it. So when I reached out to them to say, hey, wanted to do it, let's take a stab at it again. They said, yes, sure, why not? And initially, I actually came back before I'd moved to test the waters. We had a prototype and so on. And I think they weren't quite sure. Kojo, for instance, wasn't sure if we were serious. When I came down, he said, okay, he's serious now, let's get it going. And then we got started.
That sounds like Kojo.
Exactly.
That's great, because it was a lot of audacity to pack up your life, literally, and come back home to uncertainty. Because you're also coming back to a regulation that you were not sure would accept you. There was mobile money. Everybody was used to. They knew it wasn't convenient, but they were used to the way it was, and they were okay with it. How did you convince yourself you were doing the right thing? Were there times when you questioned in the initial stage, oh my God, what am I doing?
So it's an interesting question you ask. So I'd say that two things that at least for me, that I thought about. One was, what was the worst that can happen? Go and go and take a stab at it, try it out. If it doesn't work out, my mindset was I'd be building skill sets, I'll be learning, and lots of people would value that experience. So if I needed to get a job, if it failed and I need to get a job, I could always get a job. That was part of the mindset going in. The second thing is, I'd say maybe we're a little naive about how difficult it would be. Because when we thought about the problem, we thought if we offered this solution to the market, it would be a no-brainer for people. And so it wasn't so much the regulatory landscape we were thinking about at the time, because at the time the market was not really focused on this sector, because we were one of the first to get into this space here in Ghana. And so it was more, we thought that because we were solving the problem, people would embrace it right away. But that was not as easy. That we thought that would be trivial. We thought that we would go to a company and say, we want to allow your customers to pay for their internet whenever they run out, whether it's at nighttime, whether it's a holiday, which means you're going to make more revenue. Because back then, if it was a Sunday, forget about it. You have to wait till Monday to go buy your voucher and so on. And we thought that would be a no-brainer. But shockingly, that process took a long time. Because remember, even though... So people know us for a consumer app. All right. And so even though it's a B2C service, it's a B2B engagement first, where we have to onboard the service exactly before the solution becomes available to the consumers. And so that B2B part we thought would be trivial turned out to be very, very difficult.
Problem.
Yes. So you would think that you come and say, hey, I have a brilliant solution for your customers, and you're going to make more money if we solve this. It should be a no-brainer, right? But our markets in Africa is different, clearly.
The kind of things you were hearing.
No, so I'll tell you, one of the things we like to say is Ghanaians don't know how to say no. So, and we learned that over time. A lot of people who see this one.
Because you had left Ghana for a long time.
Yeah. So sometimes for one of the service providers, after we got on, and he loved it. I wouldn't name who it is, but he loved it. And I asked, okay, so why did it take so long to have us come on board? And he said he wasn't sure the ice had melted, and he wasn't sure if it would be tough enough to stick it out. So he didn't want a situation where you try out something and the guys bounce. And so that was one of the challenges for him. Other times, we had a hard time trying to read between the lines to realize that this person doesn't want to do it, right? Because we were so determined. There was one service, we literally went there 50 times in a single year.
Wow.
We pounded payment because we could go there 3 times in a week. So imagine you do 3 times a week times 4 weeks. That's 12 in 1 month.
Wow.
So if I chase that service for, let's even say, if over 4 months, that's 50. But let's say you're chasing them over 8 months, right? So you can imagine how it's so much. At some point, the MD told us, he begs us, we shouldn't come, we should just call.
And still they were not saying no.
So that's what I mean by we were so stubborn, which was good because the stubbornness was in us in terms of the drive to succeed was so high that we were not giving up and we were not taking no for an answer because we felt this makes sense, you need to do it. And so we kept going. Eventually we realized, okay, this is not really going to work out. We need to chase other opportunities. But because we started with billers, there's so many different billers. So you're obviously pounding the pavement with multiple billers at different times. And then you just keep at it.
And I believe as more people saw billers coming online, they said, oh, they're actually going to stay.
So interestingly, it was more so one of the ways we built the business, at least on the consumer side, was to listen to our customers. So once we started and we had a few users, they would say, hey, it's great that I can buy my airtime. But you know what I wish I could do? I wish I could send money to a friend or pay someone. So we kept sort of taking feedback from our users and then using that to figure out the next set of features, next set of products we should prioritize and enable for our users. And so we were user driven in that sense where users were literally listening to the problems our users still had. Then we would take a step back, think through in quite a bit of detail and figure out, okay, how do we address this in a meaningful, user-friendly way where our users will continue to embrace the platform. So that's how, that was sort of the approach we took in developing and adding on services. Yeah.
How was your customer acquisition journey?
Yeah.
Because you came in, you had to get the billers. I want to assume that you had to get a certain amount of billers before you were comfortable enough to do a big bang. Or how did you go through it? Yeah.
So it's a very good, you're asking some deep questions, Nkebet. I'll tell you, for instance, for airtime, it was taking us too long to get the actual APIs and so on from the telecom companies. So with our engineering...
you thought airtime was going to be easy.
Correct. So with our engineering minds, we came up with something really cool where at the time there was a service where you could go to a vendor and they could use their phone to top you up.
Okay.
We literally bought SIMs, put them in computers, and we're running around buying the credit ourselves. And people didn't know that, but that's how we digitized it. They had the APIs, but we were new. We didn't have a large amount of money to put down to then get connected. So we had to get creative. So we got the SIMs, programmed it, and we're literally going out and buying the credits in little bits at a time, topping up. That's how we kind of started. And then when we built enough, meanwhile we're still pushing the conversations on trying to get a direct APIs and so on. Meanwhile, we had released a service, and we're still working that in the background, and we gradually got those on. And that's kind of how we got it going. We didn't wait for everything. Yes, you need a set number of services. I don't remember how many services we started with, but I know airtime was the first service we put on. In terms of acquiring users, it was literally friends and family first. And even for some friends, because they were not used to putting their card on a platform in Ghana, I literally forced them. I kid you not. So I told my friends.
It's easier to get strangers than to get friends to believe in you.
But for my friends, I told them, I mean, you know who I am. And that's how we were that aggressive. We'll take your phone, literally download the app, put it on, and up you on board right there and then try it out. And then when they try it and see, they're like, wow. And then they get blown away. And that was it. And to be honest, the most successful way we acquire customers was word of mouth. It was not any of the interesting, you try all sorts of different marketing strategies, but what we found was that we were really solving a need. And so our users were telling their friends, telling their families, and that's how it was growing. And even to today, people tell other people that, hey, they see you have a problem, said, go use expressPay.
Wow.
You have a problem with a bank app or some kind of service you're trying to pay for, use expressPay. And so that's sort of been big for us, and we need to make sure we keep that up. Yeah.
You know, when you mentioned bank app, I remember at some point the banks literally would use expressPay in their MPRs to say, why are people using expressPay apps and not using our bank apps?
Yeah.
What should we be doing differently? How were you able to do that differentiation that the banks couldn't achieve? Because these were bank customers.
Yeah.
They were literally taking, or they are literally taking their bank app, their bank card, bypassing their app and putting those cards on expressPay.
Indeed.
How have you been able to keep your customers without divulging your trade?
Now, I'll say two things people really love about expressPay: reliability. It always works. And so we prided ourselves in making sure we built a super reliable platform that people knew, I can trust expressPay. It will work with expressPay. So that was one. And then two was customer service. Because it was a new area we were tackling, we decided that it was very important for our customers to be able to reach us and to trust us and to have comfort that if there's any problem, we are reachable. So today I would say we have the best customer service team in the country.
Wow.
And
our users,
yes, and I stand by that. I would have anyone actually challenge it or raise it, but our customers will tell you that we have unparalleled customer service. And so I think those two were an excellent combination. Obviously, there are a few other things. For instance, the user experience on our app is amazing. It's fairly intuitive, very easy to use.
I can attest.
Thank you. Very easy to use. And we are engineers at heart. And so we are really good at what we do. And so when we take on a problem, we really drill it down, think through very well. A lot of thinking before you start coding or anything. Think through all the various permutations, the various ways in which a user would interact with it, what they'll be thinking. Before you even start writing a single line of code. So put in the work up front, and then you'd get a good product. Yeah.
Were there times when you created a product and you thought everybody was going to jump at it, but it didn't scale?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you do?
Absolutely. So not so much. I'll tell you one example is, we have a product called Bank Direct, and we had to change it a little bit, which we did actually with Visa.
Yes, I remember.
And it was a very cool product because we wanted to facilitate money transfers, instant money transfers in the country. And we worked with Visa to enable so that anyone could send money to a bank instantly. But they needed to use the way we did it was we tried to have people use the phone number of the person, sort of link the phone number to their bank account. But that was problematic because of mobile money and the fact that our market really was used to mobile money and understood mobile money. And so it created a bit of confusion for our users. When they had to send to a phone number, they thought it was mobile money. And they didn't understand, and the recipient also didn't understand whether they had received it, and so on. So we had basically created an alias of sorts for sending to a bank account using a phone number. But I think there was a bit of a clash with mobile money because the market was so used to mobile money where there's a wallet, you send to the phone number, the money is already there. In this model, the recipient had to take a second action to then receive the funds into the bank account. And we realized that didn't quite work. So eventually, we morphed it into Bank Direct where you send to the person's bank account number. And that is done really well, right? Where people... Basically, with expressPay, you can send money to any of the banks in the country instantly. Once you have the person's bank account, it'll tell you the name, you send your transfer, and it hits instantly. So we switched to that model, and that we started to see growth from that product. And so sometimes it's interesting because it felt like, okay, no one's able to send to a bank account. We want to keep it simple because we didn't want to use the Visa PAN. Because there were concerns around security. Why does someone have my PAN? Even though they didn't understand that with just the PAN, you couldn't do much. So we had to modify it a little bit. And there are a few other products or services that we spend a lot of time on. We expect it to really take off, but for whatever reason, it's not taking off. One example is we put on some event tickets, for instance. I still think there's some work that can be done there, but I think it needs a little more thought, because what we thought was if you're just a distribution arm, it could work. Put an event ticket on that people will buy. But I think with events, you probably have to look at it end to end, from purchasing to being at the acceptance point when they're about to enter whatever the event's location is. I think it requires more integration for it to be successful.
I think it's doable.
I think so too.
Because when you look at the end-to-end, it's not just about buying. It's also about when I get to the event, can I perhaps show something from my expressPay app that allows it to be verified? We won't do product solution in here. But I think it's doable because I see it as a big need, especially in December, where you have a lot of those concerts, year of the return, the year of the return again, and returning again. Ghana is always returning.
Indeed.
In December. So I think there's a need for that.
I think we just need to, there's a little more solutioning around it for it to really take off. And one more I'll add is QR. QR has struggled in our market. QR is a payment solution. Obviously in the East, you see QR is really taking off. But when we come to our markets, we thought it would be a no-brainer. But we find that it's been a struggle to get QR to really be embraced in Ghana. I don't understand why fully.
In Nigeria as well.
But interestingly, in Cote d'Ivoire, it's taken off and it's doing really well. And everyone is just scanning merchant QRs. So I've struggled to understand why in just next door in Cote d'Ivoire is doing really well. In Ghana, not so much. And so that's also another product. We spend a lot of time developing it, and it's not really done as well as we would like.
And one thing you've said is very important, because you see a lot of fintech founders, they get stuck on, I spent a lot of time, I've spent a lot of effort in this, it just has to work. Perhaps I'm not being patient enough. Perhaps there are a few kinks I need to fix. When is the time to walk away, or to pivot, or to just fail fast and move?
To be honest, I don't think we found a perfect blend. I think we also suffer from what you've just described, where it's hard to sort of just walk away because you've invested so much. But the good thing is, if you don't give up and you keep thinking, I need to continue to innovate. So the example products I gave, for instance, like the Bank Direct, where I was going to a phone number, we figured out a way to turn it around, and it did well. But similarly, even on our app, there's some services that will come on and won't do well, but it doesn't mean you give up, because people love the app. So we have to keep thinking, what do our users need? What do they want to see? And continue to look at those types of services. One of the key things is you need to be careful, because it's not one person tells you they want it and all of a sudden you go and build it. Not two people. You need to have sort of a bit of a critical mass. That's what we've learned. Enough people should be asking. If enough people are asking, if you build it, it'll be interesting enough for them. And so, yes, the nature of our app is now a super app. So not every service will knock it out of the ballpark. But we need to keep thinking of, what do our people really need? Is it solving a problem? So not a nice to have anymore. but something that they need. If we can figure out a need and solve it, we find that those products do a lot better than something that we're thinking it would be cool to have. So the whole thinking of it's cool at some point is not enough, because you need to generate revenue. So you need to think of your full business case. How many people do I think would actually embrace this product? How many users would I have embracing this product? How much revenue would I get per user? How much are we looking at? How much time do we need to invest in building this product? Will we get a return? You need to sort of answer some of those basics in coming up with the new products.
And that's a masterclass for anybody building products. A lot of these questions you've asked are questions people really need to ask.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you on mobile money.
Mm-hmm.
How has your love-hate marriage relationship been with mobile money?
Oh, interestingly, we sort of serve as a bridge. One of our big products is facilitating transfers between banks and mobile money. So a lot of people do that on expressPay, where they are sending money to MTN, sending money to Telecel Cash Now or Airtel Tigo, and they're paying with their bank card. So expressPay plays a big role in that ecosystem. Interestingly, we have a lot of people who send money to MTN mobile money and pay with MTN mobile money, or send money to Airtel Tigo and pay with Airtel Tigo. So that one is also interesting and is also growing. But we will continue doing what we are doing. MTN is a partner. It's almost like a bank. They are a partner and a competitor at the same time, because competitor to some extent, right? Because we are taking services from them, and then we need to then enable those services for our mutual customers. They control pricing to some extent, because when I'm pulling money from mobile money, I need to pay MTN, and yet I need to be able to offer a compelling price point for the user. So that will continue to exist. In Ghana, I feel as if we found some sort of balance. But the good thing about MTN is they're actually quite open. I'm mentioning MTN, but generally the more money players are open to collaborating, where for some services we should also be able to list on their apps.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, they are open to that, and we are continuing to explore some of those services to figure out, okay, what could be interesting that we could put on their platforms, because they've scaled. They have the whole country, literally. And so for interesting, innovative services, our mindset is also no longer about it only has to be on our app, but it can also be on those third-party services. Exactly, yeah.
And that's interesting, because you see people say, oh, I was going to expand into Ghana, but Ghana is fully mobile money. So it's sort of like a woe is me. Ghana has been overrun by mobile money. There's little we can do. But you are saying, for the telcos, they're actually more collaborative than people think, as long as you're giving them value. So it's more like a quid pro quo.
Yeah, but it should be a service that it will have to make sense for them. So if you showed up with a competing service, I don't see that going anywhere. But if you showed up with something that is unique, I think they would embrace it. And that's the sort of language we are hearing from them, which we think is quite welcoming.
That's amazing. And I see that you moved from just not doing a consumer app to even now following the value chain into merchants and into government. You were comfortable building for consumer. You were comfortable bringing those billers. What caused that step change into acquiring? What caused that step change into now having government collections? And how has that been?
Okay. So two things. We actually have been in merchant collections for a long time. Again, we listen to our users. So customers of ours were using our app and said, hey, it's great that I can pay for these on expressPay, but is it possible for you to enable payments for me? Right? And so we said, yes, that's something we can do. So we enabled sort of our payment suite for these merchants, third-party merchants. And one of the unique things we did was we gave them sort of a full service checkout, both cards and mobile money. So one of the first to enable mobile money transactions for online merchants, for instance, so that if you come to expressPay, it's a one-stop shop. You can get all your payments in one place. We manage end-to-end for the merchant. So we started out with online commerce, and then as POS started to develop and became smarter, as POS has moved into sort of the Android world, we were like, that's our sweet spot. because we've been doing apps for a long time. So we then went into the face-to-face segment by now building our own POSs. And again, in Ghana, we looked at the local market and said, what does the market need? Not just another card accepting machine. So we enabled our POSs to accept cards and mobile money, because mobile money is ubiquitous in Ghana. Beyond that is actually even to be able to turn the devices into not just a cost center, but a revenue driver. So we are enabling our billers and so on POSs. So depending on where you go, you'll be able to pay for the various services that you may have seen on our app through a POS device. So all of these we've been doing. Government, interestingly, again, came through people using our app. Various heads of different agencies using our app, knowing expressPay is good at what it does. And so when the opportunity arose, we got together with a couple other companies and then took a crack at it. But they were used to our service. So because they had been using our service for years, they loved what they were seeing. And they were not seeing that through their various collection options. And so some of them were avid customers of ours, engaged us and said, hey, can you, yes, can you do this for me? I remember a meeting where we were at an agency and they were asking, okay, they were having problems with their existing system. We called in so that we could all have a constructive conversation. The folks were giving all sorts of excuses and so on. The person asked, okay, Team expressPay, I use you guys all the time. I know what you guys do. If I want to do this, and it was a Friday, how quickly can it be done? We said you can have it on Monday. Wow. Yeah, but that's, I think it's important to be able to sort of enable our services across the entire vertical. And in most markets, government is the largest merchant. So if you can get in there, I think it makes sense for our space.
And you've done so well. And so I think in just wrapping up, right? Yeah. I'm going to ask a question. Fintechs believe they cannot scale if they don't raise money. So you see people raise Series A, Series B, seed funding, pre-seed.
Yeah.
expressPay has not raised any money before that I know of. You've not done a Series A, a Series B. How now to advise fintechs? Must every fintech raise? When is a good time to raise? How did you cope without raising? How were you able to scale? Yeah. How were you able to pay yourselves, Because we need to, these are practical things that we need to say, and we need to educate people, because everybody sees investments. Everyone wants to take a picture with a t-shirt, standing like this and putting the headline on Tech About, How did you do it?
So first of all, we took a little bit of money. We did a small friends and family raise a long time ago. And so that's the only external money we've taken. We started out with we bootstrapped, because fortunately we had all been working for a few years before we decided to start expressPay. Starting out was all sweat equity. No one was getting paid. In fact, if I recall, at some point we had a conversation and said we need to start paying ourselves something. And if I'm not mistaken, the first amount we paid ourselves was either 300 or 400 cedis a month, which in today's dollars is about $20 a month, right? Is that correct? Yeah, about $20 a month. The first month. Obviously, back then, depending on exchange rate, it was a lot more, but it was, to give you a sense, it was a small amount. But we said, hey, let's at least start getting into the habit of giving ourselves something small. And that's how we started. And depending on, not every business, most businesses may need to raise. You kind of need to think through your business, think through the opportunity you're going after to figure out whether that makes the most sense. I wouldn't necessarily say that our path is a path everyone should take. Everyone's path is a little different. We took this path. There are times where we think maybe we should have raised. We had options to potentially exit, and we thought it was too early, based on what we're doing, and thought we loved what we're doing, we're enjoying what we're doing, and thought if we continue to create value, we will always be valuable and interesting to someone at some point. And that was sort of our mindset. So we kept at it. And one of the things I like to say is that you kind of, as an entrepreneur, when you're in the business, you manage your P&L.
Sure.
So if you need the money to run the business, you don't take all of that in salary. So I tell people when they ask, are you profitable? And so I always say, I mean, you decide, because you decide where you're spending the money, right? So if you're spending money on new products, new developments, then you're not going to have a large profit. And I think very early, that's where the money should be reinvested in the business to try and grow and scale. And so if you're in the position to do that, go for it. If you have the ability to raise and you have a clear strategy, it's hard to get money. So I think it's worth considering. But what I say is Africa is hard. And so the kind of timelines you see in the West, what we find is it doesn't work in Africa. So anyone who's looking to raise, I think, should raise from investors that will be patient enough. Because otherwise you get caught in a cycle where you are chasing your tail trying to generate certain value much faster than the market can support. And I think that's the risk. But it's good to be able to get money, validate your business to some extent, but you need a rope. What we find a lot of businesses that have done well is they need a long leash. If you think of all the fintechs that have been around for a long time, you need the time and you need the patience to be able to execute these opportunities.
I always tell investors that Africa is time.
Yeah.
If you want a quick win, don't come to Africa.
Indeed.
Go to Asia.
Yeah.
But Africa is time, and if you're patient, Africa will give you.
Yeah.
Because we're also plagued with exchange rate issues and all that. By the time you're collecting in dollars and you're doing a domestic business, the conversion, you may be a millionaire in CD, but when you convert it to dollars, and also, so I think that's interesting. Yeah. As we close, given your 13 years and more, because I know it's 13 years since expressPay fully started, but you had been building before that. So you're a veteran now. You're raised a teenager.
Indeed.
You've raised a startup teenager, so you're no longer a startup.
Yeah.
What advice would you give this fresh kid out of school with a beautiful product idea, wanting to start a fintech?
Yeah.
What, in just a few minutes, what would that be that elevator advice you would give? Okay.
So a couple of things. One, have a team or have some co-founders who have skills you don't have. I think it's very hard to have everything yourself. So be willing to have some people you believe you can go the long haul with. Don't be quick to just pick that partner, because it's like a marriage.
Don't be quick to pick that partner. Yeah. It's like a marriage.
Yeah, it's a long-term commitment.
I'm repeating it because they need to hear at the back.
It's a long-term commitment. You would have fights and so on. Fight fair when you have your fights so you can resolve your issues. But you need to be tenacious. You need to be tenacious and somewhat maybe a dose of realism to some extent. I tend to be very optimistic, and I think it helps because even when it's tough, I'm looking at the glass half full. So for me, obviously everyone's disposition is different, but I think you need to be tenacious, just go after it hard, and have a good team around you. And then always don't just think about product. Think about the problem you're trying to solve. What is the need? What is the problem you're trying to address? If you're solving a problem, then there may be value. If you're solving a problem and someone is willing to pay for your solution, there's value. So always come at it with that mindset. Is there a problem here? 1. 2, are people willing to pay for the solution I have to give? If people are not willing to pay for the solution, you need to probably move on to something else because you can't sustain it. So just in a quick few words, I think that'd be it.
No, that's amazing, because so what you've essentially said is don't create a product waiting for a problem.
Yes.
Make sure that you are creating a product that is solving a problem, and the product will sell itself.
Indeed.
Fantastic. It was really, really lovely.
Always a pleasure, Nkebet. Always a pleasure.
It was really lovely. When next I come, I'm going to ensure that I eat all my Bachi, and I'll have my kenke and kelewele.
And you'll be all set.
And I'm all set. Thank you so much, Curtis.
Anytime, Nkebet, anytime.
So you've been watching Made in Payments. This is the program where we speak to the people who have done amazing things in Africa, who are trailblazers, who are recreating despite the tumultuous regulatory landscape and just the the hard way of doing business, but have been able to surmount it all. And we're speaking with Curtis. Thank you so much for listening. Have an amazing rest of your day.